What's up, everyone? This is Corey from the OverLook, and we go over the books you may have overlooked. After speaking with a lot of people in the community, we have decided to create a second channel, the OverLook Media. In the future, this is where you can find all of our TV and movie reviews, as well as our Sunday morning comics and coffee. This way, we can make this channel strictly about comic audiobooks. Remember, if you enjoy any of these stories, leave us a comment or a like. YouTube is all about interaction these days, so now that we're turning this into a full-time endeavor, we need you guys more than ever. Anyway, thanks for listening. In New York City, around 12:37 a.m., there is a scream that pierces the night. A man and a woman slowly step backwards until their backs hit the end of the alleyway. Closing in on them are a number of gang members, each with dollar signs painted on the back of their jackets and weapons in hand. The man throws his wallet down and pleads for the gang members to spare the two of them. At that moment, Cloak and Dagger arrive. With a blast of distorted dark energy, Dagger knocks out one of the gang members. Currently, Cloak and Dagger have had their powers inverted. Cloak, now in all white, uses the light as his power source. Dagger, however, uses the darkness, and she needs to feed to survive. Suddenly, Spider-Man jumps into the alleyway only a few feet away from Cloak and Dagger. He then leaps forward and hits Dagger with a strike to the jaw, knocking her out. Cloak is too slow to react. He just stands there, in confusion. Later, in Hell's Kitchen, around 4:12 a.m., a couple of workers unload a transportation truck full of frozen fish into a small restaurant. It's best for them to make these deliveries before work hours. It keeps the fish from going bad. It's a mundane job, but it keeps the bills paid. Suddenly, Spider-Man and Daredevil come crashing out of an upper window. They throw punches at one another in mid-air, and Spider-Man easily gains the advantage. He adjusts both their weight so Daredevil lands on his back, and Spider-Man lands safely on top of him. About half an hour later, around 5:07 a.m., Steve Rogers watches as the newscast shows footage of Spider-Man fighting other heroes again. Jarvis joins him with Steve's morning tea and biscuits. "Good morning, Captain," he says politely. "I wish it was, Jarvis. We put Spider-Man on probation with the Avengers after some recent behavior. It looks like we didn't go far enough. Shall I send out the call, sir?" "Yes. Avengers assemble." This is Captain America. To all Avengers, here's what we know. For weeks, we've been noticing a change in attitude within Spider-Man. He's become belligerent, arrogant, even antagonistic. He's had negative run-ins with the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, even Thor. But then, things escalated. After troubling rumors about the death of the supervillain named Massacre at Spider-Man's hands, Spider-Man was captured on film savagely beating fairly harmless pranksters named Screwball and Jester. The Avengers brought Spider-Man in for questioning, at which point he engaged us. We were able to confirm that it was indeed Spider-Man we were dealing with, but there was no doubt that something has changed. Black Widow believes he's having a hard time with the recent death of an ally And finally, the events in Shadowland are forcing us to look at Spider-Man and how he operates in a whole new light. So, the mission is clear. We have to take down Spider-Man before another line is crossed. At 6:34 a.m., the superhero, known as Gravity, is speeding through the streets, desperate to get away. As he passes, the cars on the street are pulled up from the ground. It doesn't matter, he thinks. He needs to get away. But then, out of nowhere, he is stopped mid-flight by a spider's web, sprawling in between two large buildings. A well-placed trap. Soon after, Spider-Man arrives, carrying some kind of rifle. He approaches Gravity and fixes his aim, but ultimately, he decides not to shoot. At 7:42, Spider-Man is fighting Luke Cage and the Iron Fist. Cage is easy enough to outsmart. The Iron Fist, however, his fighting skills hold as a mild challenge at best. Next, at 8:39, Spider-Man confronts Sun Girl. At 9:50, Spider-Man is ripping Moon Knight's weapons out of the air as they jump from rooftop to rooftop. At 10:26, he punches Doctor Strange in the middle of a hospital. At 11:46 a.m., Spider-Man touches down at the Baxter Building, home of the Fantastic Four and Future Foundation. Ant-Man, Miss Thing, She-Hulk, and Medusa are the current members residing within. The original four are elsewhere, leaving these knockoffs to look over the building. The Future Foundation, for all intents and purposes, can be seen as a school for gifted children. Amongst them is Bentley 23, the 23rd clone of Bentley Whitman, the villain known as the Wizard. It is easy enough for Spider-Man to dodge Medusa's hair and She-Hulk's slow and predictable punches. It is even easier to knock out the inexperienced Miss Thing. They are an afterthought. Spider-Man sets his sights on Ant-Man. Spider-Man grabs onto Ant-Man and pins him against the wall before quickly becoming angry and throwing the hero aside. At 11:59, Spider-Man leaves the Baxter Building through the rooftop. Spider-Man uses the eyes of his thousands of Spider-Bots, as well as the less dependable eyes of his employed Spiderlings, to aid him. Scan! Route all Spider-Bot cameras to the lenses! Come on. Where are you? Spider-Man! A voice booms from behind. Before he even turns around, Otto already knows who it is. This is inconvenient, he sighs. In this moment, Otto Octavius curses the name Spider-Man. As Dr. Octopus, he would have reveled in this day. One by one, he has taken the measure of New York's superheroes and found them wanting. At least, until this moment. The Avengers have arrived. Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Thor, Hulk, Captain Marvel, and Hyperion all cast a shadow on Spider-Man. He reacts before the first attack. Spider-Man jumps to the side and dodges Thor's lightning. He also dodges Hawkeye's arrow, but it cuts away Spider-Man's rifle. Hulk smashes down to keep Spider-Man off balance enough for Captain America to strike him in the abdomen with his shield. Both Hulk and Thor grab Spider-Man's arms in order to keep him in place. He's stronger than they expected. "You idiots!" Spider-Man spits. "Let me go now!" Captain America tells him, "Settle down. No one wants this to get uglier than it already is. You're putting everyone in danger. All of you need to leave this place." Captain America squints his eyes. "Explain yourself." Iron Man adds, "If there was danger, we'd know about it. From what I can see, the only danger here is you." "Stark, you arrogant! Your armor, its filters should keep the virus out. It'll want to target you." "Me? Why me? I'm a friend of viruses." "Because if it were me, I'd target you too. Whatever you do, don't open your faceplate." "No offense," Stark responds, lifting up his faceplate to reveal a computer screen. The suit is being controlled remotely. "But unless there is a computer virus, I think I'm going to be okay." However, as a precaution, Iron Man scans everyone in the vicinity. Everyone comes up clean, except Hyperion. Hyperion, whom is some kind of superior man from another universe. His power is beyond most men's comprehension. And now, he's been taken over by the virus. His eyes glow red, and within an instant, Hyperion shoots his heat vision at Iron Man, destroying the armor with ease. He then aims his sights on Spider-Man. Hyperion shoots another pair of beams, but Spider-Man dodges it, and the heat vision hits Hulk, causing him to loosen his grip. Thor lets go of Spider-Man, and, with a battle cry, flies into the air and chases after Hyperion. Hawkeye and Black Widow focus fire on Hyperion, but their range attacks don't even distract their target. Hyperion knocks back Thor with one arm. Captain Marvel swoops in for the assist. Spider-Man grabs Captain America's shoulder, telling him, "I had this handled, and then you interfered. To think that you put me on probation." "Enough. What's happening here?" "That invincible oaf has been possessed by a sentient virus, the Carrion virus. It's been hopping from superhero to superhero all day. I detected it early, and I've been tracking it." "Down!" Captain America yells as he raises his shield, blocking Hyperion's next attack. Hyperion follows up with a blast of his heat vision that burns so hot the building top ignites in flames. Captain America throws down a smoke grenade, giving Spider-Man cover. He tells the captain, "I've designed a weapon that can destroy the virus. The Carrion knows it. It's been running from me." "What do you need?" "Time." "You'll have it." Being right all the time can be a burden. Captain America's smoke bomb is an admittedly decent idea. But Hyperion, he can see through walls. He can do anything. And as Otto sprints back to his weapon, he realizes Hyperion can't be beat. Luckily, Thor is back in the fight. Thor strikes Hyperion with a massive bolt of lightning that sends the foe crashing to the ground. Hulk follows up by grabbing Hyperion and slamming him again into the ground before holding him up for Captain Marvel to attack. But still, Hyperion can't be stopped. Hyperion's face distorts into something wicked, and he just laughs with glee. He tells the Avengers that they are nothing compared to Hyperion, and soon he will be bonded with Hyperion forever. His face, what is that? Captain Marvel asks. That's Carrion, Spider-Man tells her. I'm going to shoot him now. Carrion tells them if he dies, Hyperion dies, and Captain America stops Spider-Man from shooting. Stop, he tells him. He's lying. How can you be so sure? There's no time for this. You know what's at stake. An Avenger's life. Everyone's life. You know me, Cap. Spider-Man reminds him. Trust me. Do it. The weapon works, and Hyperion is returned to his former self. Spider-Man tells the team, I built this machine to destroy the carrion virus this morning in about 17 minutes. The survival of the host was a secondary consideration. It just so happens I'm that good. The virus? Captain America asks. Gone. And someone created this thing. Yes, an old enemy. One that I'll deal with. Captain America admits, I owe you an apology. I shouldn't have doubted you. About your probation. Probation? Oh, you were serious about that. Adorable. It's been a long day, gentlemen. If you need me to save you all again, call me. Later, under Battery Park, within a former secret base of Dr. Octopus, Spider-Man stands amongst his captive foes. The Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, his so-called friends and allies. Otto has won their trust now. They will accept the new him, and, in truth, when faced with a being of Hyperion's power, Otto saw the value of being part of a team. Just not that team. Otto requires his own team. A superior team. Elsewhere, Carrion arrives at an abandoned chemical factory. Spider-Man's weapon was extremely effective. It took me hours to reform. He will have to be dealt with if you want to proceed, he tells the man with green fur. But did you have fun? The man asks. My dear Carrion, dealing with Spider-Man is exactly what we're doing next. On to phase 2. It's phase 3, Jackal, says a begrudging clone of Miles Warren. On to phase 3. Let's go kill Spider-Man. Later, within the dilapidated ruins of the chemical factory, the clone of Miles Warren examines the DNA structure of the newest of Gwendolyn Stacy clones. It's beautiful, isn't it? To think that one small gene, one little deviation in human DNA can contain so much power. He turns to the original Miles Warren, who now is a man covered in green fur, calling himself the Jackal. Trials are going well. The losses have been acceptable. And fun! The Jackal cheers. I like the ones that set themselves on fire. Of course, all losses are acceptable when you can make more, Miles says as the two of them turn to a number of stasis pods. What now? He asks. Now, I go see my boys. Elsewhere, within New York City, Spider-Man makes his daily rounds. All the while, he muses to himself. When I say that I am the greatest superhero to ever walk the planet, there is no arrogance at play, no ego, only fact. As Otto Octavius, I was the world's greatest supervillain. It only makes sense that I would excel at heroics as well. All it took was eliminating Peter Parker. Again. Everything has fallen into place. This city and all of its inhabitants are under the watchful eye of my spiders. Any crime fighting worthy of my attention, and they alert me. My lair and henchmen are coming along nicely, and after that carrion incident, I am beyond reproach by the rest of the superhero community. To think the Avengers put me on probation. Ha! I'm a better Spider-Man than Parker ever was. And frankly, I'm a better Parker than he was as well. His career at Horizon Labs was the pinnacle of his little scientific life. For me, it is a stepping stone for what's to come. I've even begun building a personal life, something Parker never seemed to be able to maintain. Someone much more appropriate than his usual dalliances, actresses, and police officers. Please. Otto, still full of confidence, makes it back to his apartment. The world is my oyster, especially now that the specter of Peter Parker is no longer haunting me. It was truly fascinating to see just how much the lingering memory of Parker held me back, and to come face to face with him in a battle of minds especially. It was exhilarating. Now, finally, I'm free of Parker in every... Suddenly, out of nowhere, Otto is on high alert as he hears a voice from the shadows. You've been busy, the voice tells him. Otto examines the corners of his apartment. He knows that voice. He recognizes that voice. It can't be, he thinks. I like the costume. It's a whole new you, isn't it? Show yourself, Otto orders. Suddenly, a man dressed in red and black lowers himself from the ceiling. Show yourself? He mocks. Is that any way to greet your evil twin? At once, Otto recognizes the man's costume. He's seen it on the news. A story about a new Spider-Man in Houston, of all places. Someone calling himself the Scarlet Spider. The Scarlet Spider drops down from the ceiling and removes his mask. You and I have a lot to talk about. I've been watching you for days now, and I thought it'd be best to do this face to face. Otto, distracted, peers at the man's face. It's his own. And this confirms it. The Scarlet Spider is one of Peter Parker's clones. Kane. Otto mumbles. His face slowly transforms from confusion to anger. For years, this failed clone of Peter Parker tormented Spider-Man for reasons even he didn't understand. And Otto? Otto remembers that voice. He encountered Kane once as Dr. Octopus. And Kane killed him. Only by the efforts of the ninja cult, the Hand, was Otto returned to life. But he still remembers. Peter? Kane asks, growing more concerned about the lost look of anger building in Otto's eyes. Then, Otto attacks. Within a fit of rage, Otto strikes Kane and sends him flying out of the window. Vengeance will be mine, he tells himself. Kane is left plummeting to the ground. He scrambles to put on his mask before attempting to zip out a web line in order to swing away. What are you doing? He asks. Have you lost your mind? Otto tackles Kane before he starts his web swing, causing him to let go of the webs, and they both crash down onto a hood of a car parked more than 6 stories below. You know nothing about my mind, Otto curses. But you will. Otto pins Kane down and repeatedly punches him to keep the advantage. You'll know what it feels like. What you did to me. You took my life. Kane kicks Otto off of him. I paid my debt to you, Peter. I died for you. Otto flips backwards and leaps in between buildings to gain the high ground. He then produces his 4 mechanical arms and points them each at Kane as he prepares for an attack. He screams out, anything you did for him, for Spider-Man. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Don't lie. You know why this is happening, and you knew that one day this would be the price. Otto forces himself to stop. He needs to think this through. Someone could see. Besides, look at him. The Scarlet Spider is half the man Otto is. He's confused and weak. What happened to the Kane that Otto remembers? Kane kicks Otto off of him, and the pain ripples through Otto's body. He can barely think. Kane is surprisingly strong. Maybe even stronger than Otto. How is that possible? Otto thinks. Kane slowly walks towards Otto, saying, You think I don't know I'm a monster? You think I don't know what I've done to you? I am paying for my crimes. I'm trying to be the better man. I'm trying to do what I thought you wanted. If you don't like it, you can go to hell. Kane grabs Otto by the face and throws him up in the air and onto the rooftop. He follows up the attack and barely misses. The force of his attack instead shatters a brick chimney under its weight. To be fair, Otto did wonder where the Kane he had encountered was. Now, he has his answer. But, nevertheless, this degenerate genetic trash will die at his hands. Meanwhile, while Otto is lost in thought, Kane webs Otto's mechanical arms together and slams him into what's left of the chimney. The leftover bricks shatter against Otto's back. Want to know what I miss about being a supervillain? Beating the crap out of you, you self-righteous. Suddenly, Kane is tackled off the building by some kind of creature. Otto picks himself up before walking over to the ledge to get a better look. I did not see that coming. Otto cannot decide if this is an infuriating inconvenience or a blessing in disguise. Either way, it would seem that Otto is not the only one who wants to see this Scarlet Spider dead. Kane? He asks as he watches the Scarlet Spider grapple with a humanoid spider monster with 8 arms and maybe a dozen blood-red eyes, each of which are lighting up, and the creature produces an optic blast that sends Kane crashing to the ground. Fascinating, Otto thinks. These spider creatures appear to be half human, half spider, with some kind of extra. Otto looks behind him and sees 3 more spider creatures approaching. One growing spikes all over its body. One discharging electricity. And one just standing there. Extra as in X. They have mutant powers. And the spider sense buzzing in my head isn't the only bad feeling I have now. Several days ago, I encountered a mutated spider. A spider that had mutant powers. Based on the X-Men's analysis, it was a clone. A human that had spider and mutant DNA spliced into it. This would appear to be an evolution of that theme. One of the creatures tackles Otto off of the building. The other swings after with its electric webs. Otto fights off the first and thinks to himself that this is not his fight. If Kane's creator wishes him dead, then more power to him. But then, the third creature teleports in within a cloud of black smoke and grabs onto Otto before slamming him on the car hood below. The creature with the electric webs binds Otto and he yells out in pain. Today started off so well, he thinks. Ending it by taking sweet vengeance on his killer was to be but icing on the cake. Now, being killed by spiders. Someone, somewhere, must be laughing. The spider creature with the spikes hisses as it closes in on Otto. Luckily, the Scarlet Spider has his back. Kane webs the creature and pulls it away from Otto, saying, "Get away from my idiot brother." "What do you think you're doing?" Otto asks. "What does it look like? I'm saving your jerk life. I do not need your help." "Sure you don't. Any idea what these things are?" "You of all people should know." "What does that mean?" The two brothers fight back to back. Otto lifts up a car and pins one of the creatures against a building to buy himself some time. This fight is in danger of going very public. I need to end this. He looks over to Kane. And I need to end him. These monsters. A solution presents itself. Perhaps I can kill 2 abominations of science with 1 stone. Otto leaps in to attack Kane in his blind spot. These creatures won't talk. Who's really to say who killed the Scarlet Spider? Suddenly, Otto is smacked across the face and out of the air by a surprise attack. burns. He looks up and sees the carrion, Dr. Miles Warren, and the jackal. Now, the jackal begins. You know I hate to see my children fight. Wait, that's not right. I love it. Jackal, you're dead, Cain bellows as he produces 2 massive pincers from his wrists and dives in for the killing blow. Call me Dad, the jackal chides as Carrion stops Cain by grabbing him out of the air and pinning him to the ground. His touch burns. It burns away Cain's mask and sears the flesh off his face. What? What was that? I'm having a hard time hearing you through the screaming. You love me and you want to come home? No? You want to be put out your misery? The jackal, Otto thinks. I knew him even before he went insane. A geneticist named Miles Warren. His reputation preceded him. And carrion. I thought I had disposed of him. But when cloning is involved. Clone? My clone. I see his face. I see my face. They're going to kill him. No, this is what he deserves. He killed me. But his scream. It's my voice. Otto makes up his mind and leaps into the fray, thinking that if anyone is going to kill Cain, it will be him. Otto kicks away the jackal and binds Carrion with his webs in order to free Scarlet Spider from his poisonous grasp. What took you so long? Cain asks. Internal debate. Well, at least you're honest. The jackal cackles and instructs his creatures to attack. Oh, now it's a party. First one to bring me a limb gets a treat. To Otto's surprise, Cain doesn't hold back. He's aiming to kill these creatures. This is certainly something he didn't inherit from Parker. Honestly, Otto respects this. But Cain has no strategy, no thought behind his acts. Otto tells himself that he will have to use this against Cain later. But for now, it leaves him open. Otto instructs Cain to deal with Carrion while he deals with the man in green fur. No! Cain shouts. Jackal is mine! Oh, tell the truth, the jackal tells them. You missed me, didn't you? Suddenly, out of nowhere, Otto is shot in the back. He was half ignoring his spider sense to get to Jackal, and he couldn't move in time. But then, Otto freezes. He freezes as he sees Gwen Stacy, the daughter of Police Captain George Stacy, whom Otto killed, holding a smoking gun. I'm sorry, Peter, she says as she watches Spider-Man slowly lose consciousness. Cain was the first clone of Peter Parker. He was defective. So, Miles Warren, the Jackal, created Ben Reilly. You see, Miles Warren always hated Peter Parker. Even before he knew Peter was Spider-Man. The person Miles liked was Gwen. He was quite fond of her. Still, hundreds of clones later, he will admit that each one is better than the last. This Gwen watches Cain and Otto slowly wake up from their unconsciousness. They are both tied down with metal chains, so she feels safe for the most part. She is the first thing Cain sees. His stomach drops. "I remember you," Gwen tells him. "You were there when I was born. We were happy when you escaped, Cain. We really were. I'm so sorry that this is happening to you now. To both of you." "Oh, for pity's sake!" Otto jerks from left to right in an attempt to loosen up the chains. "Please, spare me this triacle. At least an actual woman would have the sense to know when to flirt. And as for you, Cain, I suggest you stop muling about the day you slid out of a tube and pay some mind to the day you're going to die, which could well be today." The jackal walks into the room, closely followed by Carrion and the clone of Miles Warren. "Boys, don't argue. It makes Daddy cross. Except when it doesn't. Oh, but I guess I can forgive you. After all, you've both had such a long day. And you can stop straining against those shackles, by the way. I know you down to the atom, Peter. And these are calibrated far beyond your strength level. You can't escape. Neither of you can. And why would you even want to? We're all family here, aren't we?" Cain grits his teeth. "No, we're not. When I get free, I promise I am going to kill you." And here I thought Peter's sense of humor had been bred out of you. Otto snaps. "What's your end game, Jackal?" "My end game, Peter? Whatever could you mean by that?" "Don't insult me. You've never been more than a minor annoyance. But all this layer, these new creatures of yours, it feels bigger than your usual obsessions. What is it that you want?" "What do I want? I want your soul, Peter. I want every chromosome of it. I want to put a little piece of you in each and everything that I allow to live. That is what I want." "You plan to harvest my DNA?" "No! Unacceptable! My DNA is mine, and mine alone. I will not be copied." "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Peter. You know modifications will be made. Perhaps I'll do a run of you with the extra arms. Or maybe I won't, if you feel that strongly about it. But your DNA is still the key, Peter. It always has been. And I need a fresh sample from the source to make sure my next batch goes the right way. After all, we all know what happens when a clone goes wrong. Don't we, Cain? They disappoint you. And disappointments aren't good for anything but the trash heap. We can't all be Ben Reilly, eh? He really was the perfect specimen. But that's science. chasing perfection. For example, take mutant-powered spider clones. With them around, who needs regular people? Send in the clones! Let them inherit the earth. Well, the good ones. Oh, imagine reality TV then. Otto tells the jackal, "You're not a scientist. You're a madman. Moreover, you're pathetic. Through what I can only assume was extraordinary fortune, you've managed to incapacitate me. And yet, instead of using this time to further your plans, you waste it prattling on about nonsense. And that is why you will fail. As soon as you try to..." The jackal pauses. "As soon as I try? Peter, really? I'm not a Bond villain. I've done it already." "You? What?" 27 vials of blood, a little bone marrow, some saliva, hair and nail clippings. Oh, and a few other samples, in case I decide to try something a little more old-fashioned one day. You know, for fun." The jackal looks behind him as he hears Kane attempting to break himself free. "Will you knock it off already, Kane? Those chains were created specifically to hold..." Whoops. Kane uses his anger to fuel him and breaks himself free. "Jackal," he huffs, "I may not deserve to live, but God knows you deserve to die." Kane runs in to attack the jackal, but is shot down by Carrion. The jackal laughs. "See? Now that's just not very creative at all, Kane. How many ways can you find to disappoint me? I think I may have just made up my mind to dissect you before I dump you back in the pile." Jackal turns to his converging spider creatures. "Do you hear that, boys? Leave Daddy enough to cut into." The electric spider creature is the first to strike, and Kane reacts just in time to counter the creature's attack with a left hook. The teleporter appears behind Kane. He turns on his heel and punches the creature in the stomach before stabbing it with his pincer that pops out his wrist. The third creature prepares his optic blast, but Kane sweep kicks it across the face, sending the beam off course. He then jumps on the back of the creature and directs the beam at the chains holding Otto down. Otto cheers as he breaks his bindings. "I'll see you in a moment, Jackal. But first, I'm putting down your little pets." He jumps in to back up Kane. Jackal, growing worried, sinks behind the others on his side for cover. "What are you waiting for, Carrion? Kill someone." Carrion steps forward and raises his arms. Clouds of poisonous gas surround Kane. He tries to distance himself, but Carrion just steps closer. "Kane, let me in," he hisses. Kane roars out in pain. He can feel Carrion trying to get inside his head. But that's bad news for Carrion, because Kane already has a monster in there, and it doesn't take too kindly to being attacked. Inside Kane's mind, Carrion is face to face with the other. It gnashes its teeth and claws at Carrion, leaving him distracted. Kane, being separate from the other, is able to take advantage of this and knock out Carrion before he can do any more damage. Miles sees this and shoots Kane in the back. Otto follows this up by punching Miles across the room. "And now for you," Otto says as he turns to the clone of Gwen Stacy. "No," she gasps. "You wouldn't." "You have no idea what I would do." Gwen's eyes widen, and she draws 2 pistols from the holsters on her back. She fires them both, but Otto dodges and hits the weapons out of her hands. "Did you truly expect to fail me with such a pedestrian effort?" Otto pops out his claws and goes in for the kill. Kane catches his hand in mid-air and tells him to stop. "She doesn't deserve that. It isn't her fault. She's an abomination, a worthless mockery of humanity, just like all clones." Otto swings away to the other side of the lab, leaving Kane with his thoughts. Maybe he's right, Kane thinks. Maybe clones are abominations. Guess I'll make sure the jackal can't make any more. Kane jumps back into the fight and begins to savagely beat on the spider creatures. Otto just watches. This has become a mess. He cannot even express how much he hates clones. There is no one worth saving here. Murderers, villains, genetic experiments. Ideally, Otto would simply leave and let them all kill each other. But he refuses to allow the jackal to retain his genetic material. It must be destroyed. And the jackal has unwittingly provided him with an easy way to do so. Otto looks across the lab and sees a hydrogen tank. He rips off the wheel and launches it back at the tank, causing it to ignite. One small explosion causes another, and one by one, the machinery, the refrigeration chambers, and the stasis tubes all ignite into flames. Spider-Man chuckles under his breath as he web swings away. The jackal, who was helping his creatures fight Kane, looks back and cries out, "What? No! My DNA! My babies! I have to save them!" he says as he pushes Kane aside. The explosion caught Kane off guard as well. It was not what he was expecting from Peter, but he knows this must all be part of one of Peter's plans. Kane's plan, however, is still the same. So, if the jackal wants to die by fire instead, the hell with it. Let him cook. Either way, Kane has no plans to die today. But that's when he sees the clone of Gwen Stacy. She just sits there in the middle of the flames with her head down. "Hey, you have to get out," Kane tells her. "No," she whispers. He reaches out a hand. "Look, just grab my hand. I'll get you out of here. I promise, take my hand." Gwen looks up at Kane, and a single tear rolls down her cheek. "I'm sorry," she says as she is covered by the roaring flames. The chemical factory is brought crumbling to the ground. Otto stands on a nearby building top and admires his work. Honestly, it's incredible what one simple, well-placed action can bring about. One piece of detritus cast into the proper direction has effectively disposed of the DNA the Jackal was foolish enough to steal from him. The Jackal himself, his contemptible experiments, and, as a bonus, Kane. To Otto's surprise, Kane swings out of the collapsing building just in time and lands right next to him. "What the fuck was that?" he asks. "I took the most efficient path. The villain and his experiments are destroyed. His equipment is useless to those who would salvage it. And best of all, we won't have to deal with any more ludicrous clones." Kane punches Otto in the face, causing him to fall to the ground. "You could have killed me." A calculated risk. "I know what I did to you, but what the hell is the matter with you?" "The matter with me? You think that pretending to be a hero changes anything between us after what you did?" "I'm no hero. I know what I am now. But you are a hero. So act like it." The year 2099. The city, Nueva York. All citizens are under the authority of the public eye, the private police force owned by Alchemax, and all citizens must vacate the area around Alchemax corporate headquarters immediately. And that is a direct order. Obviously, Miguel O'Hara finds this concerning enough to have to ditch his ride and clothes on the speed rail racing through the city. Another day and another outfit from Miguel O'Hara's wardrobe that gets donated to some lucky downtowner. At the rate he's going, he'll be naked by the end of next week. If there is a next week. Miguel's enhanced vision is picking up powerful energy waves bursting out of Alchemax Tower, and it's spreading fast. However, Miguel has seen something like this before. Temporal energy distortions. Time itself is being torn apart. Miguel breaks into the tower to find the public eye doing a poor job at stomping out the temporal storm. The public eye orders Spider-Man to vacate the premises, but between the World War II era fighter planes flying by and the Tyrannosaurus Rex stomping around, it looks like the public eye is in over their heads. Spider-Man focuses on the dinosaur, leaving the futuristic public eye to handle the biplanes. In the middle of the skirmish, the time-displaced opponents each disappear and return to their natural point in time. In their place, redcoats arrive. Each of them point their bayonets at the wall crawler. Honestly, Miguel has to hand it to them. When Alchemax breaks something, like the time stream, they break it good. Miguel makes his way to the laboratory and finds a number of scientists huddled around a temporal door. Most likely, they are tampering with virtual unreality again. Or the Fujikawa time experiments. Or something else. Miguel doesn't know for sure, but it's obviously bad. Stow it, Spider-Man. Alchemax isn't responsible for this. My men are mounting a defense to save our timeline. And, more importantly, save me. Miguel turns around to be greeted by none other than Tyler Stone. Small temporal orbs are taking away pieces of the old man's body, making him look like a slice of Swiss cheese. "What happened to you?" Spider-Man asks.
"What's it look like, you idiot? Something from the past is reaching out and erasing me, piece by piece, from the fabric of history."
"Yeah? Couldn't happen to a nicer guy," Spider-Man comments. But this does prove to be a problem for Miguel. Unbeknownst to Tyler Stone, he is actually Miguel's biological father. If he ceases to exist... "Alright," Spider-Man tells them. "How do we stop this? Where's it coming from?" Stone's men tell the two that they have successfully narrowed down the anomalies to 2 or 3 eras.
2 or 3 eras?
Tyler asks, bewildered.
"There's only one point in time where something like this would originate. Think!"
"The heroic age," Miguel sighs as he examines a nearby computer monitor. Ugh, what have they done now? Look at all those incursions into the fabric of space-time. Why would they do that? Are they insane? They broke all of time. Mr. Stone's scientist hands Spider-Man a device that will help him keep in contact with them before sending him through the portal and back to 2013. In the present, the Horizon Labs employees are playing a friendly game of softball within Central Park. This year, the teams are everybody who got turned into a spider against everybody who got turned into a lizard. Unfortunately, Uatu Jones didn't get turned into anything, so he has to sit and watch. Luckily, Anna Maria is there to help him cheer their coworkers on.
"Come on, Pete, swing that lumber."
Otto points his bat in the air, declaring, "For you, Miss Marconi, I shall knock it out of the proverbial park. Central Park." In Otto's previous life, he was one of those nerds who was always the last to be picked. But not today. Not with this body. As Peter Parker, he is now the perfect physical specimen. And he can do anything. And best of all, his girl's watching from the stands. Otto swings the bat with all his might and the softball soars into the blinding sun. And it is out of here! Otto bellows as he flexes and takes his jog around the bases. Goal! The Horizon employees all grumble amongst each other as they watch their only ball disappear into the distance. In its place, a helicopter arrives and sets down only a couple dozen yards away. On the side of the vehicle are the bold letters reading FBI. A number of black-suited men step out, warning, "Everyone, stay where you are. Max Modell, we represent the federal government, sir, and we have several warrants for your arrest. Procurement, storing and creation of hazardous materials, harboring known fugitives, human experimentation." The men handcuff Max, and his legal counsel, Hector Bays, runs to join them. Otto demands, "Max, explain what's going on here." "You'd know, Mr. Parker, if you bothered to show up to a company meeting once in a while." Later, the news reports that, with the recent event of Maximo Dell's arrest, stock prices for Horizon Labs have plunged even further. With each new day, more classified documents have been released online. Whoever Horizon's whistleblower is, the damage they're doing to the company's brand is immeasurable. And elsewhere, within the Goblin Underground, Phil Urich, previous holder of the Hobgoblin Mantle, and the new Goblin Knight, stomps around to make himself heard.
I've had enough of being cooped up down here. Goblin, when are you gonna let me go topside and stick it to Spider-Man? Urich,
warns the Goblin King.
I was unprepared before. That's all. Now that I know what I'm dealing with, I'll make that web-headed twit pay for what he did to me. What he did to you? That's your takeaway from this.
The Goblin King shakes with anger. He raises one hand and shoots the Goblin Knight with an energy blast to throw him off balance before kicking the knight to the ground.
Because of you and your shenanigans, Spider-Man might be onto our goblin protocols. You're lucky I don't burn you to ash! Don't you get it, Urich? If the wall crawler finds out I've hacked his system and took all the goblins off the grid, that could really put a grip in my side. And all because you had to prance around town in your little hobgoblin mask. Wait. That's it. Oh, Phil, you've just given me an excellent idea. Yes, this should fold into my plans quite nicely.
Later, at Horizon Labs, Otto tries to wrap his head around the ongoing events. Apparently, Morbius and the Lizard were technically criminals they were harboring. The hazardous materials were Sajani Jaffrey's vibranium and Grady's time door. The human experimentation can be chalked up to the Spider Island incident and Peter Parker's Alpha experiments. Frustrating enough, that is when a few special guests arrive. Liz Allen, former high school classmate of Peter Parker, owner of Allen Chemical, and as of this morning, Horizon Labs majority shareholder. She brings with her son, Normie, her chief of staff, Mason Banks, and her choice for this new site's supervisor, Tiberius Stone. Tiberius is there, as they put it, to make sure that everyone has a smooth transition as Horizon gets absorbed into Allen Chemical. Surely, Tiberius's intimate knowledge of the inner workings there will come in quite handy. Otto's spider sense starts buzzing like crazy. It has never been this bad before. A terrible sense of dread comes over him. It's maddening. The first of the employees to confront Tiberius is Sajani. She points a finger at his chest, reprimanding every action he's taken. But he just smirks.
Miss Jaffrey, not only am I aware of Horizon's past experiments and breakthroughs, I'm up to date on everything that's currently in production. Every unpatented idea you've worked on while on these premises, which makes it the intellectual property of Allen Chemical. And By the way, Parker, that includes all the tech you've built here for Spider-Man, down to the secret formula for his web fluid.
Under his breath, Otto vows his revenge, and his co-workers swear that they will find a way to stop the merger. They all knew back when Tiberius worked for Horizon that he was shady. The problem is, they can't prove that. No one ever caught him in the act. This gives Grady an idea, but Otto is already gone. He slipped out of the room, following their corporate rivals to the parking lot and their cars. Proof? He thinks to himself. Legal means? Bah! Fortunately, these things have never concerned any Spider-Man, including myself. Vague or not, my spider sense is all the evidence I need to know who the real villain is here. One who must be dealt with expediently. Back inside, Grady, Sajani, Sally Floyd, and Uatu Jones searched the old storage locker for the time door. It took a little bit of time, but Grady has been working on it in secret and believes he's worked out all of the kinks. Granted, the last time Grady activated the thing, he almost blew up New York. No matter. He's just gonna pop into the past really quick, and he's not going to mess with anything. He's just going to take a couple of pictures of Stone doing, well, bad things. It's that easy. After that, the day is saved. Suddenly, the time door turns on by itself. The room is filled with bright orange temporal energy, and Miguel O'Hara jumps out of the gateway. You, he says. The time! Tell me! Grady steps back. What the? Spider-Man? Yes! Well, no, never mind. The date. What year is this? 2013. I made it! Miguel cheers. And the anomaly is ahead. Wait, I've moved in time. Have I moved in space? He turns to Sajani. This lab, is it Alchemax? What? She asks. You mean Alchem? Not yet, thank God. We're still Horizon. Spider-Man sprints out the room. Horizon? Why does that name? Stop it, he tells himself. Focus. I've got to find Stone's anomaly before it's too late. Outside, Spider-Man drops down right in front of the caravan of corporate cars. All of you, stop. Right now. Exit your vehicles immediately. Liz, Mason Banks, Normie, and Tiberius exit their respective vehicles. Spider-Man? What's the meaning of this? Liz asks. Is everything okay? Are we in any danger? Oh, I'd say that very shortly, one of you is going to be in grave danger. Mr. Banks asks Liz to get back in the car. He is aware of Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a vigilante, a menace. Liz refuses. At ease, Mr. Banks. I know Spidey. He's a friend. He saved the lives of me and my son more times than I can count. Normie approaches Spider-Man, telling him, I know who you really are. You're a bad man. The worst. Someone should do something about you. Otto's spider sense is still going out of control. He decides that he'll just have to worry about it later. He's here for one man, and one man alone. I don't know what you're planning, Stone, but it stops here. Do you understand?
I've really gotten to you, haven't I, Spidey? Don't worry, Avenger. Your time will come. But right now, everything I'm doing is above board. You can't lay a finger on me.
Really? Otto asks as he reels back his fist. Is that what you think? Well, let's put that to the test then. Suddenly, Miguel swings in. No, let's not, he says, webbing back Otto's fist. What? Otto asks. Who dares? That'd be me, the Spider-Man of tomorrow, here to save today. Liz Allen, her son, little Normie Osborn, her chief of staff, Mason Banks, and the new head of Horizon Labs, Tiberius Stone, all stand by and watch the two Spider-Men throw insults back and forth. Otto, the superior Spider-Man, asks Miguel, "What are you supposed to be? The blue symbiote? Another spider clone? Tell me this isn't cosplay." Miguel pushes back, telling Otto, "I'm Spider-Man, from the future, from 2099. We've met. We had an adventure. Damn it, you may have changed your costume, but I can tell from your height, your build, your voice. It's you. Parker?" Miguel is unaware that Otto Octavius has stolen the body of Peter Parker, and Otto has no intention of letting him find out. "Silence and keep back," Otto shouts, backhanding Miguel and knocking the foe from the future to the floor. "This is what I get for wiping Parker's memories," he thinks. "I have no idea who this interloper is, other than a distraction. And there is work to be done. Tiberius Stone still has much to answer for." Otto sprints back to his original target, but Miguel is right behind him. Miguel pops his claws and slashes at Otto's back, claiming that Tiberius is under his protection. Otto jumps back to dodge the attack, and Miguel uses this opportunity to block off Tiberius. Whether Miguel likes it or not, Tiberius is his biological grandfather. If he dies today, or even takes a good kick to the crotch, Miguel is done for. He attempts one last time to reason with Otto. "You really don't remember me, do you? Sorry, you must not have left a strong impression." "Fine," Miguel says as he pops his claws. "This time, I'll make sure to leave more of a mark on you." At that moment, Tyler Stone calls Miguel from the future. "Spider-Man, wait!" "Who said that?" Miguel asks, looking around. "It's me, Tyler Stone, coming to you over your communicator from Alchemax back in 2099. That woman, she said Mr. Stone, then called him Tiberius. Son of a glitch, that's my father, as he was almost 90 years ago. He's the source of it all, the focal point of the temporal event that's
erasing me from the time stream. Whatever you do, you have to keep him safe at all costs.
Within Horizon Labs, Grady finishes telling Bella, Sajani, and Uatu his plan.
Just gonna zip back in time a little bit. I'll be there half an hour, 50 minutes tops, Bella. You and Sajani can monitor me with this.
He hands them a small device.
Don't worry, I've done this kind of thing before, with Spidey.
Bella immediately recalls that Grady and Spidey nearly destroyed Manhattan that day. Sajani wonders aloud, am I the only one concerned that a future Spider-Man came out of this thing? Grady ignores Sajani altogether.
Look, he tells Bella, it'll be different this time. I fixed it. I'll be chronally out of sync with my surroundings. I won't be able to touch anything, and no one will be able to see or hear me.
Like a ghost?
Bella gasps.
Like me, apparently, Sajani pouts. Hello, a future Spider-Man? No one's freaked out by that.
Outside, Otto pops his claws as well and dives in for an attack. I warned you, told you to stay out of my way. Now face my wrath. He swipes at Miguel's chest, but his claws cannot rip whatever fabric Miguel's suit is made of. Not a scratch. Impossible, he snarls. No, just a suit made of oomph material. It's standard where I come from. But for a low tech like you, it must seem cutting edge. Miguel turns on a dime and counters with his own attack, successfully ripping out pieces of Otto's suit. That hurt! Otto huffs. His mechanical appendages emerge. He points each one towards Miguel. Each of them is as sharp as broken glass. Otto decides to snatch up one of Liz Allen's company cars parked in the street. No one calls me low tech, he bellows as he prepares to crush Miguel with the machine. No one! Okay, Miguel thinks. Change of plans. Whatever's happened to Spider-Man, he's unhinged, out for blood, and I'm next. Lucky for Miguel, getting back at the wall crawler has always been part of Tiberius Stone's plans. Tiberius produces a miniature spider jammer from under his sleeve, and it sent out a wavelength that causes Otto's spider sense to go out of control. Otto loses his footing as well as his grip on the car, and it begins to fall over to the side, creating a shadow over Liz Allen and her son Normie. Mason Banks grabs Liz and calls out for Normie, ordering him to get to safety, but Normie is petrified. He stands there, motionless, as almost 2 tons of metal prepares to crash on top of him. Mom! He cries out in terror. Miguel zips out a webline and tells Normie, Go limp, I got you, kid. Yanking Normie into the air and away from danger. Liz runs in to comfort her son. Normie, are you hurt? Mr. Banks, call 911. You, other Spider-Man, what were you thinking? You could have snapped his neck. Don't worry, lady. That's a resilient little spud you got there. My enhanced vision tells me he's just fine. It also tells Miguel that Tiberius here, his grandfather, was the cause of all of this. With some kind of signal that set Spider-Man off and endangered the boy's life. Just like a stone. Anything to save their own skin. Miguel wonders if he's playing for the wrong side here. Otto stands to his feet. This isn't my fault. Is your son... Miss Allen, please understand, I would never harm a child. Look, if you hadn't made a play at Horizon, went after my technology, none of this would have...
Enough, Liz snaps. I have nothing more to say to you.
Mr. Banks, I'm taking Normie to the ER. As for Horizon, I want you and Mr. Stone to immediately... Wait, where'd he go? Before a second can pass, Otto zips away as well. This is all unacceptable. There's another Spider-Man out there. One that has a way to weaponize my spider sense and turn it against me. And worse, he seems to know part of my secret. That physically, I'm Peter Parker. This future Spider-Man is too dangerous to leave running around. He must be dealt with immediately. Otto makes the call to his spiderlings on Spider Island. Another Spider-Man is on the loose in the city, in a blue uniform with red markings on the face, chest, and forearms. Locate him at all costs. One of the Spiderlings speaks up. Gotcha. So, stop looking for Hobgoblin and... No, you addle-brained imbecile. Do both. Find them, or I shall... Suddenly, Otto's phone rings. I have to take this call. Stay there. Or else. Anna Maria! Hi, honey. What can I do for you?
Hey, Slick. Actually, I was calling to see if I could do anything for you.
What?
I'm done with my work for class tomorrow, so I thought maybe I could come over and help you with your thesis.
I'd appreciate that, dear. But as you saw earlier, things are a little crazy today at Horizon, and unfortunately, all my equipment for my thesis is stored over there, in my lab. Excuse me, I have to go. Otto had totally forgotten. All of his work for his doctoral thesis has been done at Horizon, using their resources. If Allen Chemicals' takeover goes through, they will own all the rights to his next great invention. To the hell with Parker's old discoveries. This work is pure Otto Octavius level of genius. He'll be damned if another lays claim to it. He has to get back there and smuggle it out immediately. Everything else, including all this future Spider-Man nonsense, can wait. In the air, Miguel web swings through the buildings with Tiberius in tow. He's just trying to buy some time away from Otto so he can think. That's when Tyler gives him another call from the future.
Spider-Man, can you hear me? Whatever you're doing back in 2013, it's working. My personal timeline, my very existence is stabilizing.
Miguel responds, all I did was put some distance between your ancestor and this era's Spider-Man.
Ancestor?
The young Tiberius asks.
Who are you talking to?
Miguel ignores the question. He has to decompile this. If Miguel keeps Tiberius, his grandfather, safe, everything in his time goes back to the way it was. A world with him, with Tyler Stone, and Alchemax. An all-powerful, evil mega-corporation. How could Miguel let that happen when he has the power right now to stop it? Tiberius shuffles to his feet. A smug sneer spreads across his face.
Wait, you said ancestor.
You're a time traveler, and you've gone out of your way to protect me. I'm going to do something big, won't I? Or my kids, or my grandkids. They're going to grow up to be somebody important, won't they? I've worked it out. In this equation, you may be the spider, but I'm the butterfly. You're not gonna step on me. Just the opposite. Here, let me put my theory to the test. Tiberius steps backwards, spreading his arms in a Christ-like fashion and closing his eyes as he steps closer to the ledge. He falls off the building and points himself towards the ground. Miguel leaps after him and easily catches Tiberius out of the air. I knew it! Tiberius cheers. Thanks for proving my point. Miguel webs Tiberius's mouth shut, telling him, You crazy, shocking lunatic. I've had enough of your games. Tyler Stone bellows out, What are you doing? Unhand him! That man's a stone, you downtown piece of trash. I said enough from both of you, Miguel snaps. Okay, let's see if I can hotload a different channel from 2099. Miguel tampers with his wrist communicator until he is able to summon his personal AI from back home, Lila. Lila, Miguel says, I've DL'd your entire thought bank to my location in 2013. I need your help. Info dump me on everything you know about the historical connections between Tiberius Stone, Alchemax, and the 2013 megacorp called Horizon Labs. Elsewhere, in the recent past, at Horizon Labs, Grady watches as Peter Parker reveals for the first time the Parker Particles, a hyperkinetic form of energy tied into the forces of universal expansion itself. Clean, affordable, near limitless power. The same day Peter's alpha energy experiment exploded. Grady gets a good view of what went wrong. Tiberius Stone and their boss, Max Modell, stand in the back of the room, overlooking the safety readings on a number of computers. With Michael Morbius now gone, there is an opening in Max's personal think tank. Max tells Tiberius that he's actually thinking about inviting Peter instead. This is motivation enough for Tiberius to sneakily disengage the safeties, risking countless lives. Grady makes the call for the team to bring him back to the present day. Uatu is tentative at best about messing with time travel at all. Sajani just wishes Peter were around. He's more familiar with this equipment than they are. Suddenly, Peter goes walking by with his robot servant, the living brain. Careful, robot! Don't drop any of that. It's extremely valuable. I didn't say slow down. We have to remove all my things as fast as possible. Understood? Otto stomps out of the building to a parked van, followed closely by the robot, and they begin to load the equipment. Max Modell and Hector arrive just in time to ask Otto what he is doing. Horizon Labs is under federal investigation and the target of a hostile takeover. Legally, they can't remove anything from the premises. Peter, Max says, please, trust us. We'll sort this out. And if you don't, Otto asks, Allen Chemical could lay claim to all of the technologies I've developed for Spider-Man, as well as my latest breakthrough. I don't know what to make of this, son. You're not acting like the man I brought into my company. Don't you understand? If you do this, you could jeopardize everything I've... Otto's phone rings. 1 second. Call. Have to take this. Otto walks away. I'm here, he says in his Bluetooth. What do you have for me? This is Spider Patrol 4, boss. We're on the Lower West Side. Have you located either of them? No, but... Then why are you calling me? We didn't have the hobgoblin you wanted, sir. We've spotted the other one, the original one. Quickly, Otto turns back to Max. I have to go. Robot, drop this off at Spider Island. What? Max asks. Where could you possibly be off to that's more important than this? Can't say. That's it. Mr. Parker, if you leave now, I wouldn't bother coming back. Back in the alleyway, Miguel continues his conversation with Lila. She tells him that it was rumored, but never proven, that Tiberius Stone's acts of sabotage led up to the destruction of Horizon Labs, and the rise of Alchemax. And not just financial sabotage. He's the one that caused the actual destruction of Horizon on November 9th, 2013. What? Miguel asks. Lila, that's today. Back in the lab, Max and Hector walk in to find their employees all huddled around a time door and unstable chronoton particles bouncing around the room. He orders them to pull Grady back and shut down the door this instant before it's too late. In another alleyway, not far away, Otto struggles to put on his costume. I've lost my job. My discoveries might get stolen, and I've barely worked on my thesis. And now my spider sense is unreliable. My spider bots are failing me, my minions are useless, and another hobgoblin shows up. What else could possibly go wrong? Otto's phone goes off again. What? It's Mary Jane. Peter? Finally! I've been trying to reach you for ages. Do you have any idea? Not now, woman! Otto snaps. I'll deal with you later. After I... Suddenly, Otto notices Miguel swinging by. He hangs up the phone. That other Spider-Man and Stone! Decisions. In the lab, Grady walks out of the time door. Max demands once again that they shut the door down. Max, it is down, Grady tells him. But all the chronotons, they're not from the door. And they're not just chronotons. They're alpha energy. And it's all connected, man. This was always gonna happen. Miguel arrives in the lab and confirms what Grady is saying to be true. He's right. This is fate. Destiny. But I know how to change it. There's a lot to DL, and there's literally not enough time. I'm from the future, 2099, and I have foreknowledge that this place is about to blow. But if you listen to me and do everything I say, we'll be able to make it out of this alive. And in one, out of nowhere, Otto arrives. He lands a sneak attack on Miguel, knocking him out. Ha! He snorts. This is what you get for meddling in my affairs. Grand Taro is an island paradise in the Caribbean. Long ago, Taro was a safe haven for pirates and smugglers, a tradition it carries on to this day, as a tax shelter for the suspiciously rich, and home to Antoine Morant, banker to the Magia, AIM, the Red Skull, and an endless array of the worst this world has to offer. His pockets are lined with blood. Now, it's time to settle his accounts with God, for this is where he answers to the Wraith. The Wraith jumps on the hood of the escort vehicle and begins to pound on the glass. The car still speeds around the narrow mountain trails. About a yard to their left is a 50-foot fall down to the ocean below. The Wraith jams a gas grenade into the vent of the vehicle and leaps off of the moving car and into a Jeep following not far behind. Driving the Jeep is Carly Cooper. The Wraith tells Carly that she successfully got Antoine with her fear gas. Her suggestion is that they play it cool. He's running scared and he's bound to slip up. That's when they'll nail him. Carly refuses. They've been at this for too long to risk losing a lead now. This is it. They get this guy, and they've got Spider-Man right where they want him. Back at Horizon Labs, there are only 15 minutes left before the temporal event. Crackling yellow energy erupts from the building. Near the time door, the 4 Horizon workers, Max Modell and his legal counsel, Hector, all examine the future Spider-Man from 2099. Uatu Jones is the first to speak up, stating that Otto just killed him. He'll be fine, Otto tells the boy. And besides, the lout had it coming. What he had was a solution to our current predicament, Max huffs. Horizon Labs is set to explode, and you just rendered the one person who could save us unconscious. Watch your tone, Modell. None of this is my doing. Grady interrupts. Spidey's right, boss. It's Tiberius Stone's fault. He sabotaged us. He made all this happen. It was months ago. I've been to the past. I've seen it. 3 different times he's messed with our stuff. And now, all of that, working together, it's created this, well, time bomb. Spider-Man asks Grady to explain the events for him. He unlocked the safeties on Parker's alpha energy generator, playing with the fabric of space. He recalibrated my time door, which explains these chronotons, the fabric of time. And he tampered with Sajani's artificial vibranium, which adds an alien harmonic frequency to the mix. Max wonders aloud how they can ever contain this mess. Child's play, Otto tells him. First, Miss Jaffrey will need a sample of that metal you've made. Sajani nods her head. It's reverbium. I'll get some from my lab. Max gasps. What? You promised me you destroyed all of it. Unbelievable. Don't chide the girl, Modell. She was being resourceful, and it will save us all. Spider-Man looks at Uatu. You, Jackson, uncouple those regulators from the Alpha device and bring them here. Uatu obliges. Bella, however, chooses to focus on the Spider-Man from 2099. Bella full-heartedly believes that he will be the key to saving them. Agreed, Max says. He's the Spider-Man we should be listening to. Otto laughs. Huh! Understand this. In all of space and for all of time, I am the superior Spider-Man. Otto turns his attention towards Tiberius. And what none of you fools seem to realize is, this man is the key. Tiberius Stone. You never intended to be at the heart of the cataclysm, did you, Stone?
I had no idea that what I did would lead to this. How could I?
Unimportant, Spider-Man tells him as he begins to unwrap Ty from his bindings. All that matters is that you are familiar with the tech. You will assist in constructing a counter device, or suffer the consequences with the rest of us. Max leans forward, reminding Otto, Spider-Man, wait. There's one more person we need. Your friend, Parker? Why? Otto yells. Because of Sajani's reverbium. If we're right, this is all happening because the fabric of space and time is being subjected to its destructive vibrations. And Parker was the only one who could solve the equation to cancel them out. He pulled that off his first day at Horizon. It's why I gave him the job. You're his friend. Didn't he tell you? Of course he did. Otto frantically accesses everything he can remember from Peter Parker's history. He scans through Peter's childhood, Aunt May, Uncle Ben, science camp. Max taps on Otto's shoulder. Well, did he mention the equation? He asks innocently. Quiet! I'm thinking! Otto snaps. Aunt May, Uncle Ben, Aunt May's death? No. Uncle Ben's death. Defying the impossible. Gwen Stacy, Gwen's death. Mary Jane, his childhood. Kraven the Hunter, his death. It doesn't make sense. Otto may have purged all of Parker's memories, but he can still recall the ones he's already accessed. The equation, it could be in one of them. He just needs to think. It might be in one of the few impressions Otto still possesses. Or maybe it's lost. Spider-Man, Max asks again, this time shaking Otto by the shoulder. Not now! The chronotons are building in intensity. We're literally running out of time. I almost have it. Just need another second. Second? Max repeats in confusion. Spidey, you spaced out. You've been at it for 8 minutes. What? Otto jumps to his feet and examines the area. In the time he was out, Max, Tiberius, and the others quickly rigged together a machine to produce a counter frequency that will cancel out the time implosion. All they need now is for someone to punch in the correct frequency. Parker's equation, Otto mumbles. At that moment, Miguel groans himself awake. Parker? He stutters as he stumbles to his feet. But Parker's here. Max quickly jumps in, stammering. He must be confused. Knocked to the head and all. Spider-Man, you can do this, can't you? Of course, Otto says triumphantly. If Parker could solve this, then so can he. He is Otto Gunther Octavius, and his intellect is superior. Otto jams in a couple of buttons, and the machine instantly hits him with a buzzer. He tries again. Another buzzer. Max asks him, You don't have it, do you? I would if you stopped blathering on. I have this. Max then turns to everyone else and orders them to get out now. Tiberius leads the charge.
You heard the man, out of my way!
Suddenly, Miguel grabs Tiberius by his collar and pulls him back into the room before pinning him with a chokehold. Miguel tells him, No, not you, Stone. Not this time.
Let go!
Tiberius squirms.
Don't you get it? Everything that little hologram woman of yours said is coming true. We failed. Horizon's gonna explode. We didn't change history.
Do you mind? I'm working, Otto says, still jamming at the buttons on the machine. There are 3 minutes left before the temporal event, and Miguel and Tiberius are going to stand there until it happens. Miguel will change history. He will make a better future. One without Alchemax, without stones, his family, his friends, everyone he's ever known. Miguel is confident that a new timeline will take its place, and they will all be fine. 2 minutes left until the temporal event. The chronal energy that once seeped from Horizon Labs now bursts into the sky. Layers of spiraling clouds wrap around the beams of light. Max Modell and the employees all make it to the parking lot to watch it all unfold. And so does Mayor J. Jonah Jameson, wondering what these power-mad Poindexters have done now.
Just tell me, is this it? The big one? Are you about to blow up my city?
Max, keeping his eyes on the destruction, tells Jonah, There's still hope, sir. Spider-Man's in there. He could still save us. The mayor rolls his eyes.
Perfect.
Inside the lab, with 1 minute to go, Otto continues to plug more formulas into the system. Ah, I see what you did, Parker. The reverbium is an imperfect vibranium. You need to express that imperfection in your equation, like so. I knew I'd figure it out. After all, I am... The buzzer sounds. Inferior. Otto cries out in his distress as the machine begins to fade away piece by piece into the blinding light. Soon, Otto goes along with it, and everything else in the room. Then, the hallway. Then, the entirety of Horizon Labs. The chronoton energy is pulled inward towards the epicenter of the building and pulls everything in with it. All that is left are the sewage pipes underneath. A perfectly controlled implosion. Just a few moments prior, Miguel came to his senses and decided to save himself. And by extension, Tiberius Stone.
Ha!
Tiberius cheers.
Knew that'd work.
But what about our Spider-Man? Max asks. Jameson huffs.
We could only be so lucky. Trust me, I've been here too many times.
But he was in there when it...
I'll believe he's gone when I see his wall crawler corpse. Maybe not even then.
In the future, year 2099, the chronoton energy begins to dissipate. Everything is returning to normal. The elderly Tyler Stone jumps up from his chair, victorious. He's back to the Tyler Stone they all know and love. All that remains is to retrieve their Spider-Man back from the heroic age. Tyler lifts up his hover chair and hurls it at the time travel device, shattering it and disrupting the time gate. Now, Miguel is trapped in 2013 with his ancestor, who he can do absolutely nothing to. Miguel showed his hand. Both stones know he won't do anything to harm Tiberius, not without risking everything he cares about back home. Tiberius Stone is untouchable. Tiberius struts away, saying, "So long, Max. Enjoy your hole in the ground and all your numerous lawsuits. I've got places to be." Later that day, the Oscorp building is undergoing construction. Inside the building, within the office of Liz Allen, her, Mason Banks, and Tiberius Stone all raise their glasses for a toast to their first step in this bold new endeavor, the foundation of this all-new mega corporation. Liz Allen's father's company, Allen Chemical, merged with her son's holdings in Oscorp, and the intellectual properties Tiberius helped them acquire from Horizon Labs. Gentlemen, I give you Alchemax. Max Modell, Hector, and Grady return to the empty Horizon parking lot and wait. The mayor has a few last words for Max. He is not allowed to restart, rebuild, or anything in Jonah City again. Not while he's mayor. And if Max agrees to that, Jonah will pull some strings with his contact in Washington and get the feds off Max's back. But only because Marla, Jonah's now deceased wife, considered Max a friend. Max obliges and waits for Jonah to drive away before ordering Grady to bring out the new portable chronoton generator, telling him to be quick. This will be the last bit of science that Max does. But after all the good Spider-Man's done for the city, and all the times he saved them at Horizon, how could Max possibly do any less? The energy from the chronoton implosion is fading, but Grady can still find a life sign out there, and he knows it has to be Spidey. If he can reverse the polarity of the neutron flow, they should be able to retrieve him. Suddenly, a yellow beam of energy emerges from the small device and Spider-Man materializes in front of them. Distressed, his suit ripped apart and bleeding. "I'll find a way," he says. "You haven't heard the last of Dr. What?" He looks around. "Where am I?" Grady tells him, 2013, dude. We did it, Spidey. You're back. So, where'd you go, man? I don't know. Can't remember. Max approaches Otto. Spider-Man. Modell. From this point on, I consider us even. You go your way, I go mine. Agreed? Very well. And that goes for your friend, Parker, too. I was wrong about the two of you, on every level. I think it's better, for all of our sakes, if we consider this chapter closed. Otto returns home. He's been missing for 9 hours. An entire news cycle. So what now? Does he issue a press release? Contact the Avengers? Otto has never had to deal with this any of the times he died as Dr. Octopus. Honestly, it's going to be a chore. He checks his voicemail. 15 missed messages from Mary Jane, Aunt May, and Anna Maria combined. With a sigh, Otto decides to deal with the redhead first. Call Mary Jane Watson. Dear Lord, this woman needs to move on, and it's time I told her once and for all. Mary Jane, who is currently painting the interior of her club, sighs out, "Finally!" when she hears Peter's ringtone. She picks up the phone, and before he can speak, she says, "Look, don't say anything. I'm busy fixing up the club. You know, the one that burnt down? The one your pal Spider-Man couldn't be bothered to swing by? I was busy fighting crime, protecting the entire city. I sent fire trucks there. My bots reported that you were fine, and I did squat? I'm just making sure you're still alive, 'cause that's what people do. I don't want this responsibility anymore. Carly knows the score. She can check in on you. I get that stuff's happened to you ever since Sable died, since you almost killed Kirk Connors, since Ock kidnapped all of us. You've changed. And it's time I changed too. I'm moving on. So long, Tiger." Later, at the South Street Seaport, Max Modell and a number of former Horizon employees load up on his personal boat, the Zephyr. The only ones that stay behind are Uatu Jackson, his mother won't let him go, and Sajani Jaffrey. Max doesn't trust her, and he's running very low on trust right now. And that's it. They set sail into the night to start anew to new horizons. Sajani and Uatu wave goodbye to their former coworkers and friends. That's when Sajani gets a call from Otto. "What do you want?" she asks. "Actually, Miss Jaffrey, this is about what I can do for you. You're a resourceful woman, Sajani, and I believe I have an interesting proposition for you. Trust me, for every door that closes, another opens." Elsewhere, in Grand Taro, on the private compound of Antoine Morant, the Wraith and Carly Cooper have tracked down Antoine and kicked down the door to his office. He hastily runs to his desk and begins stuffing papers into his paper shredder in an attempt to cover his tracks. Carly shoots the paper shredder before rushing Antoine and snatching the slips out of his hand. "Alright, let's see what's so important that it's the first thing you'd want to destroy." "Please! You have no idea what he'll do to me!" Antoine pleads. Soldiers of fortune, vehicles, and scientific equipment purchased and shipped to Spider Island, straight from the secret bank account of Otto Gunther Octavius. Gotcha. Hey guys, so if you made it to this part of the video, I just wanted to say thank you for watching. Superior Spider-Man is by far my favorite story of all time. So yeah, thanks for letting me share this with you. But remember, we have our DCTV weekly recaps every Wednesday around 1 p.m. Pacific time. And after that, the episodes will be uploaded separately on our second channel, the OverLook Media. 3 words. So yeah, If you guys want to talk about TV, movies, or anything like that with us, go check out that channel. Until then, I hope everyone has a great rest of the night.